Hey everyone, welcome back to this channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Marcel. I talk about Chinese stocks and with a particular focus on the EV industry in China, and NIO is one of them. And in this video, I will be talking about news around a boost to the Chinese economy and in particular for NEVs. So there's lots of talk about whether or not China is going to stimulate its economy. I'm going to do a actually separate video on this topic and also tell you more about my expectations about stimulus in China. However, investors got pretty excited last week about the these new measures here in the area of NEVs, and with particular what this might mean for NIO stock and battery swapping, right? So let's dive into this article and also look a little bit at the original documents here in order to separate hype from reality and what that might mean for NIO stocks. So I think one of the really important things here is that this news here has actually been co-signed by 13 departments. So it's actually not new that we get news from time to time around that the Chinese politicians are actually trying to subsidize or promote the consumption of new energy vehicles, right? We've had this since, I think, very beginning of this year, but this time it's co-signed by different departments, so it's having a stronger impact, and also the NDRC is, a very important one. So let's have a deeper look at how they are actually trying to do it. And here I have actually, opened the original document here, and as you can see, it's a 3-pager. Highlighted, you'll see in yellow the term Huandian, which is in Chinese the term for battery swapping. And I'm going to quickly translate the relevant paragraphs here to you. We will continue to promote the formulation of relevant standards for power exchange. Power exchange is the Huandian battery swapping translation here, infrastructure, to enhance compatibility and versatility. So NIO from the very beginning was part of a consortium of different players in China in order to formulate the battery swapping standards. So they continue to promote the formulation of relevant standards. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer that they're doing it, but on the other hand, it's also not something that is new or exciting, to be honest. We will accelerate the promotion and application of power exchange mode, actively carry out pilot vehicle power exchange mode in public sector, and support the construction of urban bus station power exchange infrastructure. Encourage cities with conditions and highways and other public transport trunk lines to speed up the construction of power stations. So I don't know about you, but to me this sounds very much focused at the public sector and public infrastructure such as buses, where actually frankly battery swapping might make quite a bit of sense, right? And in a sense, it also makes a lot of sense coming from the government that, in the first place, they really care about this technology on how it can improve the daily lives of lots of people. And, sorry to say, but 300,000 NIO vehicle owners are not necessarily the big chunk of the population there where a ministry would be caring about. So in this paragraph, frankly, no news to me that is directly related to NIO and NIO's battery swap stations. Although one twist we could make around this is, of course, when it comes to formulation of battery swap standards, NIO, through its patents and being a pioneer in this area, might benefit ultimately with some sort of license fees or, other royalties that go into the formulation of such a new standard. And frankly, the role that NIO is playing there with having the largest battery swap station infrastructure built out in China clearly gives them a head start there. So, but on the other hand, nothing really tangible in there, right? What else here? This paragraph says reduce the purchase and use cost of new energy vehicles, implement policies and measures to continue and optimize the reduction and exemption of purchase tax on new energy vehicles, promote the implementation of residential electricity prices for public charging and exchange facilities in residential communities, and promote the implementation of the peak and valley time sharing electricity price policy for charging and exchange facilities that implement industrial and commercial electricity price. So these are two things here. The first one is about the tax exemptions. And here is where we in the past had a very, very explicit support for NIO, because NIO was exempt from some of the taxation despite the cars being above a certain threshold. I think it was around 300,000 RMB. So that was very, very explicit support there for NIO, and shows some sort of a strength here in comparison to some of the competitors. And, on the other hand, here is nothing concrete that is targeted only at NIO here. So this is very vague again. And in general, of course, we are expecting those kind of purchase tax exemptions for new energy vehicles in general. So this is also something which we repeatedly got as a news. So thereby, I would say for investors, this is nothing new. There's nothing tangible or measurable that we could price into any of the stocks, right? And then on the other hand, what's really nice to see here is that there is actually this new line here about supporting this implementation of peak and valley time sharing electricity price policy. So there might be some policy advantages coming in that could be used by NIO swap stations in order to balance the grid. So this is about this one business model that is very NIO specific, because there's nobody else who has this sort of infrastructure out there. And NIO is already doing pilots in this area in China, and actually also involved in one of the European projects, because frankly in Europe this has much more application potential as of now. So this is a little bit of a hint here which could benefit NIO in my point of view. On the other end, again, this is some sort of very, very descriptive, vague formulation here. Other than that, there's not too much in this document, to be honest, and I think we need a bit more of a material stuff, like how this would explicitly benefit NIO, and also maybe some numbers in terms of what could be the actual support. But hopefully we will get more details actually in next week, because the state planner and the RC will hold a press conference on Monday on 10 a.m. Beijing time. Maybe they will give us more details in there, and maybe that's what investors are kind of trying to front run here in terms of what this could actually mean in numbers. Until then, I frankly don't see that much news in there, and nothing to get too hyped or excited about until we get something that we could actually implement in some sort of a business case. Now, before I talk about what I think could rather drive NIO stock price instead of this news, let me also quickly talk about another thing that people are getting very hyped about, which is about something that was introduced in NIO Power Day, and that is the daily ability of renting or upgrading and switching the battery sizes. Frankly, to me, this isn't anything material either. While this is a great update to the user experience and really showing one of the benefits of battery swapping, on the other hand, the cost structure of $7-8 however you convert it, isn't actually something that is material to the business case, and it would only matter to us if this could really drive a lot of new demand for NIO vehicles. Now we have to say this battery swapping upgradability advantage that NIO clearly has was there all of the time. So it doesn't really matter to me too much whether or not this is daily or monthly right now. What matters to me is how well NIO can actually translate that into sales. And so far, I don't think that the battery upgradability story has been too much of a popular decision maker or a buying reason for buyers so far. This might change if NIO is actually going out and marketing this extremely successful, and this will help us to drive demand for the vehicles. Then this will ultimately also, of course, help the stock price and NIO's business. But for now, I don't think that this is actually big news. Instead of these two topics about battery swapping and subsidies, what I think should drive NIO stock right now is that possibly investors have wrongly priced NIO in the last couple of weeks. They have priced NIO for no growth, for actually negative growth, and I think those scenarios need to, kind of elaborated right now and given different probabilities. And therefore, in the near-term future, I think this might be the ultimate driver for NIO's stock price, possibly to the upside actually, because the probabilities, in my point of view, are looking more towards that NIO stock has been priced too conservative for this year's outlook. But you need to put a probability on each of these scenarios and then see where you think NIO stock price should be going in the future. And maybe, if we're lucky, NIO gives us a couple of more data points regarding the battery swap business model, and maybe even also the Chinese government will put a little bit more numbers onto what they have just announced. Then that's something that investors can work with. Then this can be implemented into analyst targets and the business cases. And then we can also look much further into the future and what it means for demand for NIO vehicles and ultimately the stock price. That's my point of view. Let me know in the comments what is your point of view. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.